Welcome to Oddcast. Nah, I'm just kidding. Welcome to Oddcast Podblast. Dude, that is, over the top. I like it.
I like it.
Yeah. So for a second show, we're pretty happy to have a couple of stories from some of our friends.
We got stories from friends and two friends, really. That's about all we got.
That's it. So we only have two friends. We need more friends. But we truly appreciate our friends and family for listening and having a good time. In the first episode, let's keep it going. Keep on sharing it out there. Hashtag OCPB. And we'll keep the shows coming if you guys keep the listens coming. And
we'll keep talking if your ears will stay tuned in.
That's
right
it.
Here on hashtag OCPB Oddcast Podblast.
So today we'll talk a little bit about ghosts, a little bit more about UFOs, because you found a couple more stories that had just come up in like the recent weeks.
Well, it's something that I literally found today when I was at work. One of them, so supposedly the theory is right now that NASA is going to be releasing evidence that we're not alone.
That's weird, you know. I don't know, 'cause so you're talking about this group Anonymous, which has come out and put out some other weird stuff,
and that's where the information came from. And it's like it. But for the sake of it, this show is all in fun. So I just went with it. I was like, okay, here's something
all
good.
in fun and taking down the system.
One microbyte at a time.
So
I should talk like this for the whole show.
Before we go on, I want to give a shout out. Quick shout out to David Smedley, who was listening and figured to share a story, as well as George Snyder, who shared a story with us as well, which we'll get into in just a little bit. George talking a little bit about UFOs, kind of in the same area where in the previous show, if you tuned in and checked it out, it's in that same area that my mom actually had the experience as well.
Maybe that's a hot spot.
I guess so. It's not far off. I mean, we're talking only a couple miles here. And your cousin, actually, David, who had a experience at camp.
Yeah, and this happened to him 2 or 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. 2 or 3. He as soon as he gets back, he calls me. He's like, you won't believe what happened. And after he was done, I was like, buddy, I'm having a hard time believing what you're telling. Then he sent me pictures and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, a picture kind of solidifies it. It would have only been better if he had video or audio to back it up. But I don't
know how much video you're going to take when you're taking a picture of a messy room. But,
but he could have just messed it up himself.
Check out the underwear right here.
So anyway,
my counselor.
We definitely want to encourage you to share your stories with us, and we're going to try and open up a way for you to get us your stories via the phone, hopefully in the next couple of weeks as well, which would be really cool because we'd love to chat with you about some of your stories. So,
yeah, chat with you live and
live. So anyway, let's get into it. Oddcast Podblast,
like
episode 2.
Podcast.
So let's talk a little bit about UFOs and of course this NASA thing where you're saying that it's a possibility that they might be releasing some information to the public that could potentially open us up to another world of extraterrestrials or other beings that are just living somewhere on another planet.
Well, it's been possible. And then, there was also, somebody dug up like a fossil. And we actually put that on the Oddcast Podblast Facebook page for you to take a look at. And it's really interesting when you see this, but it's like a three-fingered alien. It's so hard. It looks like just...
Yeah, I'm going to come out right here and say, I don't know. I don't know.
That's my thought. It's like, because it's one of those things that looks like it was made. Because most of the time, like, when you see a fossil, it's more like a rock. And this looks more like clay. And I mean,
I don't know. I mean, you check it out. Facebook.com/Oddcastpodblast. There's a little bit of a video to go along with it. But so a leading UFO expert actually claimed to have unearthed it. It's in Nazca in Peru, but like you said earlier, it's 3 long fingers that are just pretty creepy looking. I mean, It kind of looks like something that would come out of a horror movie, which, I mean, in general, if you're speaking about extraterrestrials.
What's the one with the knife, like the knife finger thing? That's almost what that looks like.
Knife fingers?
Yeah. Yeah. What is that?
Like Nosferatu? Like the long fingers, like the old silent film vampire? Yeah, Nosferatu. Yeah, they are kind of long like that. I mean, yeah. So the damn thing is 5'5", long legs, and of course 3 fingers on each hand. They break it down here. Its head circumference was about 49 millimeters, and the face length was 17 centimeters.
But then look at the arms on this thing. Though.
Well, but that's the thing. It looks like your basic alien, and this is actually broken down on Gaia.com, which is supposed to be a pretty well, like, you know, perceived website for like paranormal and like, you know,
paranormal, UFO, et cetera.
So they're saying that this thing is real. And I mean, like I said, check it out for yourself. It looks like it could be. The face really looks pretty promising. I'm not gonna lie. If you've ever seen a mummy or anything that has been mummified or, you know, preserved very well underground, I mean, that is kind of what it looks like. And if it is from another world, it might not even be made up of the same things that we're made up as human beings.
It's possible.
So when you look at this and you actually, you know, start to read through this, they found it basically in a box with its knees tucked into its chest and its hand wrapped around its legs. You know what this sounds like to me? Ancient Peruvians from the capital of Lima so have, you know, captured one of these beings and kept it in, I guess, a box. Yeah, essentially. I mean, it's bizarre. You really got to see it for yourself. Facebook.com/OddcastPodblast. Check it out. And while you're there, drop us a story. But you know what? I'm a little bit more than 50-50. I'd say I'm about like 70-30 on this one.
It'd be really interesting to see if that story ends up actually going anywhere. But, you know, they've been doing a lot. I mean, talking about extraterrestrial, they've been doing, you know, people have been talking a lot about finding life on other planets. Like you got what planet could potentially host, you know, life in a sense. And, you know, Mars, like everybody, Mars just seems to be the talk planet. You know, Mars, it's like, like Mars seems to be the only one. But I also heard, actually went back in college, I had I was taking astronomy, and it just kind of came up. My professor was talking, and he was talking like they would like to do a project of being able to drill under the ice of Neptune to see if there's potentially anything living down there in the seas. And also they've done, you know, that they've tried to do things with Saturn and Jupiter. Like they've tried to do so much stuff, like desperately trying to find a glimpse of anything. And I'm pretty sure the closest thing to life that potentially was found is water on Mars, ice on Mars.
Right.
That's about it. So water shows that, you know, if, you know, like where there's water, there is life. Unless you're in Florida, then it's mostly dead or swampy.
Yeah, no, it's everything dies in Florida.
Or the Dead Sea. If it's the Dead Sea, odds are, yeah. No.
Sorry, Florida locals. You probably all know it's true anyway. But anyway, on that note, you also sent me a story a couple days ago from Fox News saying that NASA actually is saying that 10 planets among 219 new planets announced, this is coming straight from NASA, could potentially support life. Which that's huge. I mean, 10 out of 219. I mean, the odds have got to be very slim. I mean, when you look at these planets, like you were saying, like, oh, what are we looking at? Like ice on Mars, this, that, and the other thing. 10 planets out of 219. If we could find 10 different societies, that'd be like just groundbreaking to another level.
Yeah,
but I think this also has something to do with what you were saying with Anonymous. Oh, they're going to announce something. You know what? I'm starting to think that Anonymous, not calling them out, but I'm starting to think that they're a little bit more tied in somehow than we think.
That's why they're anonymous.
It's just Donald Trump in his underwear. Anonymous. We must remain anonymous. Huge. It's huge. So anyway, it says there are now 4,034 planet candidates identified by Kepler, according to NASA. in which 2,335 have been verified as exoplanets of roughly 15 near Earth-size habitable zone candidates detected by Kepler. More than 30 have been verified. So that's insane. And you can check this out. We're going to have this up on our Facebook page as well. But it's published June 19th of this year from foxnews.com, which, I mean, that's a reputable source.
Yep.
I mean, there's no doubt about it that they could have potentially found 10 more planets that would support life.
Well, I mean, and look at our solar system, it just is so big. It's so hard to think that how could we possibly be the only ones here?
Well,
then some theories are like maybe there's just one planet with life on it per galaxy. Like,
right.
Which is possible, because you have to have a planet in the right space, far enough away from a sun, but close enough to where, living, life is able to sustain itself. So I'm really curious to see more of what is potentially coming to take place if would be the better word, if we hear more about these stories unfolding.
So anyway, on the topic of UFOs, stemming off of last week's show, we did get some comments, like I said, from our buddy George. And he actually said, I remember it like it was yesterday. And I'll never forget it. October 18th, 1998, my brother's birthday. I was 11. Me and my mom were on our way to pick up my brother from football practice. So, just to put light in this, Cape May County, not a very big area. Just putting that out there. Okay? We turned off Indian Trail Road onto Shumpike, headed towards Memorial Field. The second we turned, we noticed this thing in the sky. For about 2 miles, there was a triangle-shaped flying object with 3 lights that flew directly above us. 100% was a UFO. We would slow down to try and get a better look. It would slow down. We would speed up. It sped up. My mom finally decided to pull over and look at it. The second we pulled off the side of the road, boom, disappeared. So, we are scared. What the hell was this thing? When we got out to the field to pick up my brother, a bunch of people were standing around looking up at the sky. Whatever this thing was, it flew directly over the field. My mom told the other parents what we had just witnessed.
Just recently witnessed.
And sure enough, everyone was saying it was a UFO. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. And to this day, I've never seen anything like it. Not in pictures or videos, anything. Crazy. They're out there. And I'm definitely one of those people that truly believe reptilians walk among us every day. But he said this was cool. Keep it up. And I got ghost stories too. So I think we'll hear from George again soon. Thanks, George, for the story. Truly appreciate it. And thank you for listening, man. So, I mean, that truly...
And this story was obviously before drone technology was around.
Yeah.
So it's not like somebody was out there screwing with somebody.
Well, and he also says, too, he's never seen anything like it to this day ever again.
Yeah.
But it syncs up really close to what my mom had said she experienced as well. And generally, like, only a couple miles away. If he's on Indian Trail in Shumpike, I mean, basically coming over that bridge that she had the same experience on leads right into Indian Trail.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you hit an intersection and you're on Indian Trail.
Yeah.
So it all lines up, but it's kind of weird that in that exact same area, and I mean probably about 20 years apart.
Yeah, roughly
20,
around there,
20,
and something
30
similar happened. So, you would probably know this. Is there anything around there like government property?
Well, like I said to you, yeah, we've got a Coast Guard base. Right in Cape May, about 20 minutes south of that.
How long has that base been there, roughly, would you think?
If you had to
take a guess.
I'm not sure. I mean, for a long time. Let's put it that way. For as long as I've known it, and I've lived there, pretty much my whole life until I moved here to Orlando.
Okay.
So I'm 26. Let's say about 24 years of my life, I believe it's been there.
Right.
I'm not really sure of when or why or how.
Yeah. Well, it's probably safe to say, especially being on the east side of the states, that's been there for, especially if it's
quite
Coast Guard, quite some time. Yeah. And the Coast Guard, they do deal with aerial vehicles as well as like marine vehicles. So, I mean, it's possible that through the years, I mean, obviously another conspiracy theory, like everything that we talk about, that, they could have been, simply testing gear that wasn't public knowledge or private knowledge. And if you're out there, you say this road is kind of just out there, there's not really close to the city, right?
I mean, it's not really city in that area,
or town, or suburbs.
But, I mean, it's close. No, it's close to pretty much homes and everything. I mean, everything's very condensed.
It's close enough to where government or military probably wouldn't try pulling or doing any sort of weird tests.
You wouldn't think, but I mean, you never know. You never know. I think I'm gonna go more with George. I mean, I want to say that it was definitely a UFO.
Well, it was an unidentified object for sure.
You're on this kick, man. So anyway, man. So let's
George.
get in.
As soon as you find out what it was, we'll give it a name. It'll be Frank.
Frank's flying around Cape May County since the 70s.
Yeah, Frank the Flying Freaky Phantom.
Well, I mean,
Phantom.
UFO, unidentified. So. Let's take a little bit of a turn here. So we talked a lot about UFOs and some different things with extraterrestrials in space. Let's take a twist here and go to ghosts and ghouls.
Yeah,
like famous Charlie Day said. What are some of your interests? Like ghouls.
The ghoul. Go out with a couple of ghoul friends.
Ghoul friends. So anyway,
that would be great. And don't forget, if you have a story, whether it's UFO, whether it's ghost, whatever it's got, if you got a story, if you've got a friend's story, you can share it with us right here on our Facebook page. Hashtag OCPB. That's Oddcast Podblast.
And at facebook.com/Oddcastpodblast. So talking about ghosts and, we've each had our own experiences with ghosts, or at least think we have. I mean, I know what I saw and heard and everything like that, and I can honestly say that I have no explanation for any of it.
Yeah, but who does? I think some people do, depending on the situation. But most of the time, it's like when people see or say or see. A lot of this time, it's like, oh, it was just there.
That's it. Yeah.
It always brings me to believe that. I always wonder. And I know you've got the story about the time you and the boys were in the basement of the radio station rehearsing with the band.
And we heard somebody singing.
Was it you weird. Heard somebody singing or somebody slamming on the door?
There were several accounts of that. And we'll get into that later. Because I think saving our personal experiences would be kind of fun. And see if, maybe some of our listeners would share some of theirs. And, we got one from your cousin, which we'll share in a little bit. But I want to get into a lot more of some of the more famous cases, the ones that we know, but a lot of people might say are a hoax.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, how about this? How about like some of the most haunted hotels in the world? Like we got the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado.
Yeah. So you're from Colorado. I mean, you've had to have heard many a story about the Stanley Hotel, and this is the perfect time to get into it too, because I mean we're talking summer, we're talking people going away for vacation, and hey, maybe you're gonna find yourself in a haunted hotel.
What to do if you find yourself in a haunted hotel? Step 1:
leave. or you could get out your phone and start asking it questions and see if it's nice enough to answer you.
No.
And if it's gonna answer with a nice answer. But so yeah, Stanley Hotel. I mean that's where they based the story The Shining around.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this building was built in 1909, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 1909.
An old building.
Yes, it is. Yes, it happy 100 and something birthday.
Wow.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
100.
Good grief. Yeah. And anyway, so this was built in Estes Park in Colorado. By the way, if you get a chance to don't go to the hotel, but go to Estes Park. It's beautiful.
Why not go to the hotel though?
Well, I mean,
is it still in operation?
Yeah, I believe so.
So I mean, you can go and we can rent a room at the Stanley Hotel.
I will double check on that.
Like I mean, you keep saying you want to go snowboarding back in Colorado. I think
do.
The Stanley Hotel.
I would like to go up to Loveland where it's lovely, or Aspen where it's aspeny,
or Eston County, or is that what it's called? Essex or Eston?
Estes Park.
Let's go there.
All right.
We'll go snowboarding at the Stanley Hotel. You get to hang out with those two little girls with the bloody hallway. You get into these haunted hotels, right? And it's always fun to laugh about, but of course we keep an open mind about it. Like we said before, you got to keep an open mind about these things.
Oh, but, yeah. So, anyway, with the rest of the story, so a lot of people that go in here think that the owners, Mr. Stanley and his wife, are the ones that they typically see the most in the hotel, which would make sense because it seems like, why does it seem like people that hold the most sentimental value to a certain place, that's who you tend to see walking around a place that people claim to be haunted? Like even the White House, people say that they've seen, Abraham Lincoln. Yeah. And I think Eleanor Roosevelt is another one. Mm-hmm. And there's 2 or 3 others. Let me see here. But
I mean, you got to think about it. When you put your whole life into something, and I mean, you really, pour your heart out into just, making something like a hotel run. I mean, that's your business. That's what you basically,
that was your life, especially back then.
Your life around,
especially back then, because we didn't jump around from job to job like we do today. My resume is long.
Well, and that's to say, I mean, like it's one of those things where you look at it and you think about, like you just said, like that back then, especially, that was your whole life,
right?
So who's to say though when you move on from this life that it just doesn't keep you with it? I mean. The way that I've always looked at things, and you might call me crazy and whatever, it's just a theory.
Nuts.
Absolutely am.
Everybody, he's nuts.
So if you think about it, like when you look at tape and recording, and it's all magnetism, So in order to record to the magnet, you need to provide energy.
Right.
That energy becomes electrical energy, and that goes onto the magnet. You record sound.
Right.
Okay. So we did the same thing with video. You record video on a tape. The planet is made up of magnets. Okay, so you have.
Well, it has a magnetic. It's got a magnetic
draw,
center. Yeah,
and that's it. So, I mean, who's to say if the energy wasn't correct or is correct at the time, that if something happens or when you pass, you're already drawing enough energy because you've already poured so much into this place that it keeps you with it.
Right,
your soul. I mean, your spirit, anything like that.
That's always what it seems to be like. And, man, I would love to, as soon as I get a little bit more knowledge, and if you have more knowledge on this subject as well, we would definitely love to hear from you about some of your theories or other people or like other theories that you've heard of why you think people tend to see spirits or ghosts in a place that might have been important or sentimental. Like, what is about that makes them makes a spirit come back? So other than Mr. Stanley and his wife, it looks like you can also see even some guests. Some people have claimed to see guests, often seen like in the billiards room. Let's see, there's another room, the music room, and they've heard the piano play. There's been multiple.
What is it? What is it about pianos?
I have no idea.
Why are they so damn creepy?
Or organs. Organs
are even
worse.
creepier.
Organs.
Well, you know what it is? You normally associate an organ with death. Because you always like you're walking into the funeral, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden, like there's just like sometimes just a creepy old lady just sitting at the organ, like
yeah,
she turns around, smiles at you, gives you that grin. You're like, I don't want to be in that casket anytime soon. Let me out of here.
Yeah, that's not a very nice.
So I mean,
grin.
I feel like we associate that instrument, the organ, at the very least, with death or reggae. That's the only 2 things that I can think of that use an organ, or Deep Purple.
What is it about? But yeah, that's why the organ and then when you hear somebody actually play it for real, you're like, oh, that's not so
but
bad.
I mean, the piano's always been that instrument that's just creepy. Like even if you ride that famous ride where that mouse does stuff, that's like a haunted house that's pretty big. There's a giant piano right there.
Yeah, the cling.
Yeah,
cling.
You just see the shadow. You know, it's just always something that's been associated with hauntings, and it's always the grand piano.
Maybe once you're a ghost, you just suck at playing stringed instruments. And
well, it is a stringed instrument. It's just got keys.
Well, exactly, but it gives you something to, like, you can't play a guitar.
I don't know.
You can't play a guitar. Or maybe, well, obviously you're dead, so you have no air, so you can't play the trumpet.
I can't play the trumpet now.
I can't either. I'm a terrible musician. Like,
so let's get into your cousin's story, which I think is pretty interesting. You want to do the honors?
I'll fire away here. So this is David, and David went to camp a few weeks back, and he actually called me shortly after this took place.
Which I thought was weird. I mean, you told me right away as soon as it happened.
Yeah, and I've also got pictures, and we will put these up on the website for you to see, and I think you'll enjoy this after you hear this story. So he says, we were at camp doing a community service, and my friends and I were walking, and we thought we saw coyotes. So we started running, and we turned around, and when we saw it, it was a black thing. He looked like a slender man. He had no legs, no face, and he was really tall.
Well, not a slender man, but the internet craze of which took place, and it's actually called Slender Man. You know
Slender Man.
Yeah,
that was
like an 8-foot guy with no face. Except, I mean, in this case, it sounds more like a shadow person or something like that. Which, I mean, a lot of people talk about. But continue the story.
He had no legs, no face, and he was really tall, with really long hands. He had a top hat, and then when we were at the cabin and things really got scary, things started floating in the air. Then we were doing community service. He was stalking us as it scattered our stuff all around the room, and it was the most scariest experience ever. I did not see it for a couple of weeks until one night something got me out of bed, and I went to the living room, and there it was, the black thing wanting me to go downstairs. So when my uncle got up, he said he saw something, but it vanished, and he said he had scars all over me when he got up. So that's bizarre. It was like a scar or red marks or something. He was telling me about it, and I do have pictures, and like I said, I'll try to get them up on the Facebook page too, of the cabin, because I remember talking to him about it, and he said it was one of the last days they were going to be there, so they were packing up their stuff. Like, you know, they were going to be leaving camp, so they had their stuff backed, and when they came back to the cabin, it was scattered all over the place.
Yeah, that's pretty creepy, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what's even creepier for me? I mean, you often hear about like things out in the woods, and I mean, obviously a fictional story, but it's still an actual legend, was the Blair Witch, and you know that's something out in the woods down in up in Maryland for us. But you know, you hear things about being in the woods, and you can't help but think that it's something else. I mean, I know me and you have talked about this before, but you know, it's scary when it takes place in the woods, and you know, you talk about things like the Blair Witch, which takes place down in Maryland, and it's odd because, you know, something wouldn't just be in the woods. You know, we and you have talked about this before. I mean, you think back to like early days of religious figures, and you think of like pagan beliefs, and they kind of more were, you know they would praise the earth and the elements. So there's like, it could be a spirit that's, you know, of one of these ancient spirits that, I mean, you know, controls the earth, or it could be something more than that. I mean, if you are very religious, I mean, you might also believe, like, you know, satanic rituals and things like that of you know, summoning up demons and stuff. And usually that stuff,
which, considering the time period, seems a little more likely. But also,
it takes place in the woods. You know, anytime you've ever heard a story about that, all that type of stuff, it's always seance and rituals in the woods, because they're trying to hide it from regular society. You don't want the normal society to pick up on what you're doing, because it's generally going to be frowned upon, because what you're doing is toying with something that is flat out evil.
Oh yeah. Well, and that's why people were got the death penalty for worshiping the devil.
Well, the death penalty, I mean, we stoned people, we hung them, we burnt them at the stake. And I mean, a lot of that stuff might not have been true for that time, but you never know. I mean, you don't know, and you could chalk a lot of it up to different things. But regardless, I mean, when you think about something out in the woods, it's generally something that is going to be very, very different from what you would deal with in like a haunted house. Stanley Hotel type situation. I would think. It just in my brain and in my theories, I think you're dealing with something a little bit different, which kind of it freaks me out for your cousin in that fact, because I mean they're in a cabin out in the woods.
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of off from everything else.
Yeah.
And if it didn't have any legs, didn't have a face, looked more like a shadow person, any account that I've ever heard of about a shadow person is usually tied in with sleep paralysis or like just general weird hauntings that are happening around. And most of the time, they end up not being like a human entity, because I mean, when you put a human entity, you usually hear about orbs or like, things coming to you in your dreams or something like that. But I mean, you could chalk it up to a lot of different theories and things, but I don't know, something out in the woods just doesn't rub me the right way.
Yeah. No, there's just something. Yeah. Like you said, there's just something secretive and, it's secretive. So clearly, if it's secretive, it's kind of like when you were a kid. If you were doing something in secret, you were probably doing it because it was wrong.
Right. And that's the thing, too, is that, when it follows you home and it wants you to go down into the basement, that's even weirder.
Mm-hmm.
It wants you to be somewhere where you're far away from everybody else.
Yeah.
That is, to me, just no.
Yeah.
Not good. So I would definitely say, David, thank you very much for the story. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate your feedback, and we hope to hear from you again. It's a great story, but wow. I would definitely steer clear of that one and maybe try to get some help.
Yeah, no, he actually did, and it's gone. That I know of. I actually talked to him about it a couple days back before we recorded this, and I asked him to make sure. I said, "Did you get rid of it? Did you do it, correctly?" And we'll even get into that as we get down the road about if you are having trouble with certain demonic spirits. There are ways to get rid of them. And that's something we'll go into later on down the road.
Well, and you've had experience with that, and I'll let you take the reign on that one for sure. But I want to put out there too, if you do have a story and you want to get it over to us, even if you want to, maybe you're into the audio game and you want to shoot us over a story of you speaking, please, we're encouraging it. Absolutely. Facebook.com/Oddcastpodblast and send us your stories. You could also hit us up, oddcastpodblast@gmail.com, if you kind of want to remain anonymous, because I could see why people wouldn't really want to put their full name out there if maybe they were uncomfortable with it. But absolutely, send us your stories. We want to hear them, and we want you to chime in as well. So send them over. Oddcast Podblast, #OCPB. Before we wrap up, where are a couple of these hot spots that you can go to check out some haunted hotels? I'm gonna throw one out there to you.
You got
one of the most haunted places in America, close to my hometown, Cape May, New Jersey. Bed and breakfasts galore, and it's an old Victorian town. There's plenty of haunted, like I said, bed and breakfast hotels down there. And one of the biggest ones, Congress Hall. Congress Hall has some ghosts.
Yep, I've heard of that
spooks.
one. Yep.
So I know. What was the other one?
The Southern Mansion.
Yeah, Southern Mansion.
Yep.
Is that on your list?
That's actually number 6 here on the list of the 13 most haunted hotels in the world from this list that I have.
Cape May, New Jersey.
Right here. Yep.
Right there. Right back in my backyard. It's a beautiful place. Beautiful property if you're going over there to check it out. But
it's
number
gorgeous
6 on your list of the top 10, along with the Stanley Hotel in which they based The Shining around.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah, it's crazy. A couple of other things. Omni Shoreham in Washington, D.C., Hotel Sorrento in Seattle, Hotel Sorrento, I'm just naming the states one. Also, the Hay Adams, that's also in Washington, D.C., and so some of these, there's one in Northern Ireland called the Ballygally Castle.
The Ballygally Castle.
The Ballygally Castle.
How about that?
I've never heard of that one, but I guess
Ireland is crazy.
It seems like a lot of that part of Europe kind of has some interesting.
Well, I mean, Europe. I mean, they're like,
and also look at the history of some of the things that happened, especially like to the Irish and
it's
some of the people back in that area of the world.
Hands down, one of the craziest places. If you want to go and find out crazy stories, Ireland. Go check it out.
All right. Well, for some of you that if you're living in Boston, Omni Parker House. That's there in Boston. The original hotel opened in 1855 and was run by founder Harvey Parker until his death in 1884. Many guests have reported seeing him in their guest rooms. That's lovely. Where he's asked about their stay, which was very nice of him.
Hey, at least he's hospitable.
Yeah, after a businessman died in room 303, there were multiple reports of laughter and the smell of whiskey.
Doesn't surprise me.
I know, man. We should.
We should go hang out with that guy.
I know. He'd be great to have on the show. You know, we always got whiskey.
Interview a ghost. All we got to do is bring him a bottle of Jack. Let's do it.
Yeah. It's like, excuse me, sir. Mr. Steven, would you like some Jack? No. Oh, okay. I like the better stuff.
I drink Scotch.
Yeah, Scotch. Yes. Well, it is Boston. It's Boston. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much it. There's a couple of other things in there, but a lot of interesting stuff with the hotels, and of course, we'll find you more. One thing that I'm looking into, which we'll have to save for another day because we're about out of time here, looking into some of the most haunted battlefields. You know, World War II. You know, global or right here in the States, you know, from Civil War, you know, a lot of that stuff is really fascinating to me. And that's something that we'll definitely look at more as we continue down this road of ghosts, UFOs, etc.
Yeah, lots of crazy stuff to talk about, and we want to talk about it with you. So make sure you hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/Oddcastpodblast. Follow our hashtag OCPB. And of course, shout out to my brother, Bob Maschio. You can check out his pictures, which came along with this podcast, up on our YouTube channel. So make sure you check that out as well. Check out his pages and check out some of his photography. As for me, Jim
and Chad, we're going to be out of here, and we're going to say so long until next time. But thanks for joining us here on Oddcast Podblast, hashtag OCPB.